I'm your host, Sharita Williams, and today my guest is Zulemya Reyes. She is a coordinator for Campus BC, and she will be sharing her story with us today about breaking the cycle of poverty in the Latino community. Please help me welcome Zulemya Reyes to the show. Zulemya.
Thank you, Sharita. I'm thrilled to be here today.
So, Zulemya, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm an undocumented Latina living in Southern California, and my goal in life is to eliminate generational poverty in my community. And this year, I founded YAGNARJ, which is a nonprofit with the mission to make wealth building simple by expanding access to financial literacy, financial planning, and index fund investing for low to moderate income youth and adults in the Inland Empire.
So how do we get in contact? How would people get in contact with your nonprofit?
You can visit our website, yagnarj.org. It's spelled YAGNARANJ.org.
Okay. I also see that you were a recipient of DACA. Can you tell our viewers a little bit about DACA?
Well, DACA is a program that was that came about during the Obama administration, and it allows undocumented young adults that came in during their childhood to stay in the U.S. without having to worry about deportation, and it also gave us work permits. So it is a big opportunity for young immigrants like ourselves to give back to America.
Yeah, I think that's great. So of all the things to pick, why financial literacy and why financial literacy in the Latino community?
Well, my passion for financial literacy started when I was quite young. I grew up in a low-income neighborhood, and I saw many hardworking families struggle to pay bills, put food on the table, and keep a roof over their heads, including my own. But there was one person in my neighborhood who I thought had it the hardest. And it was this abuelito, this grandfather, who lived in the back unit of our apartment complex. He was an older gentleman, and there were times when he would even struggle just to walk down the stairs. Yet he would wake up at the crack of dawn and pick up plastic bottles. He would pick up cans. He would pick up any other recyclable material that he could get his hands on to exchange for cash at a local drop-off center. And there were days when I would see him struggle to push this giant shopping cart of recyclables from one end of the neighborhood to the other. And seeing him struggle at that age in his life when he should be enjoying his retirement really impacted my view of life, because at that point I knew that I didn't want to see my mom and dad in that situation during their retirement. I didn't want to be in that situation, and I for sure did not want my future kids to be in that situation. At that time, I didn't know how to avoid that outcome. It was terrifying. All I knew at that point was that I needed to not just work hard, but I needed something else to be able to get ahead, because there are a lot of hardworking families that struggle. These families work just as hard, if not harder, than other well-off families, yet they're lacking the tools to ensure that that hard work pays off. And I believe more than anything that financial literacy is what will help them get those tools. And the reason why I decided to focus on the Latino community was because we have the lowest rate of retirement accounts. We have one of the lowest wealth amounts built. So that's why I want to focus on helping my community, the Latino community, grow their wealth, ensure that they have a good retirement account and not have to struggle during their golden years.
So do you think having the lowest income, do you think that's because of undocumented workers, or it's just a lack of education?
I think it's both. I think it's both. I know for my case, my parents only went up to middle school. They didn't graduate high school. They come from a very poor village in Mexico. And once they got here, because they were undocumented, they don't have work permits. They would have to work under the table. They would take They would get taken advantage of. They would get paid less than minimum wage. So it's both.
So what would you say is your biggest barrier to wealth building?
I think the biggest barrier is the lack of social capital in low-income communities. There were no lawyers living in my neighborhood. There were no teachers. There were no accountants. There were no police officers. There weren't even regular office workers living in my neighborhood. Most of those who lived in my neighborhood worked at fast food restaurants or at factories. I couldn't go to a neighbor or a family friend and ask what a 401k was. I couldn't go and ask what a Roth IRA was. I couldn't go and ask what financial aid was. All I knew in my neighborhood was to keep my head down and ignore the cat calls coming from older men in my neighborhood. And this happened in my neighborhood, and this is happening in other low-income neighborhoods in America. So the biggest barriers to wealth building, I think, is their own surroundings.
So do you think with them, with deportation, with them deporting people once they find out that they're, and I just say illegal immigrants, but for lack of better words, do you think that was a barrier as well?
Yes, it tears families apart, especially if the one being deported is the father. Usually in immigrant Hispanic family units, the father is the head of the household. He's the one bringing in the money. When he gets deported, you have a single mom now with maybe 2 or 3 kids, not knowing what to do. So deportations are not helping the problem.
Absolutely. So how do you overcome these barriers? You know, not only like as being a Latino, but any young person or an adult that is having financial literacy problems.
You overcome this by stepping out of your comfort zone, by asking for help, going out of your neighborhood. And I want to say, don't let the school counselor ignore you just because you're an average C student. And don't let the banker ignore your questions just because you only have $100 in your bank account. You're your biggest advocate, and you need to take charge of your future because no one else will. So go to your local resource center and see what services are available. I actually started my wealth building journey by visiting my local Neighborhood Works branch. Neighborhood Works is a local nonprofit that offers home buying workshops, and it's thanks to their services that I was confident enough to buy a home when I was 24 years old.
So what is that website that our viewers can go and get in contact with you?
My website is yagnaraj.org, again spelled YAGNARAJ.org. If they have any questions, they can always go ahead and visit me, send me an email. I will be happy to help them.
So Zulemya, are you targeting just young people or just anyone can come to you for help?
Anyone can come for us for help, but our programs and courses are designated for young adults.
Okay.
So we won't turn anyone away.
So I think that's fantastic. So when you're saying breaking the cycle of poverty, explain to us in depth, like what do you mean by breaking the cycle?
By breaking the cycle of poverty, I mean not having to worry about paying your bills, right? Like that's the poverty mindset, is having to worry about paying your bills, living paycheck to paycheck. So the idea of breaking away from intergenerational poverty is breaking away from living paycheck to paycheck and ensuring that your future kids are also not going to be living paycheck to paycheck. And you do that by creating wealth. Wealth that's not going to go away when you pass away. Wealth that's going to be passed down to your kids, to your grandkids, to your great grandkids. So that's when I'm talking about breaking a cycle of poverty. And when it comes to Latinos, I think one of the things is that when you get older, your parents are getting older as well, and then they're going to start relying on you for financial help. And trying to break away from that is going to be very hard. So maybe your generation might be the one breaking away by ensuring that you have a good retirement account that you don't have to rely on your future kids. That's how you break from that generational cycle of poverty.
Okay. So Zulemya, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back right after our break. And if you're out there and you're seeking counseling for financial literacy, please go to our website, wytv7.org. Thank you.
Happy is an intentional and lifelong journey, but it's hard to change and grow towards higher levels of happy without knowing where you're starting from. Our happy quiz puts a starting pin on the map to your happy living and provides additional guidance and motivation along the way. Just go to happyliving.com and take the happy quiz to get started on your road to happy.
We're back with Zulemya Reyes, and she's talking to us about breaking the cycle of poverty in the Latino community and in all communities. So Zulemya, tell us, do you think fear plays a part in people seeking help in your community?
Yes, I do think it plays a part because what happens is that when you have parents who are scared that if they go to a local resource center, if they go drop off their kids to school, if they even go to the park, there might be a chance of them getting deported. It prevents them from seeking help and getting the resources they need to build their wealth, to ensure that their kids have what they need to succeed. So I think that fear is a true barrier as well to wealth building. I remember some of my friends, I was lucky enough to grow up in a city that was a sanctuary city, which meant that law enforcement wouldn't know if someone was undocumented, or they wouldn't tell ICE that that person was undocumented. So ICE wouldn't come over and arrest that person just because they got a speeding ticket or just because they got a parking ticket. But there's other cities who tend to be a little bit more conservative, and the police officers or the law enforcement does have that communication with ICE. So parents in those areas, they would fear just getting a parking ticket or a speeding ticket because they would get scared that the next knock on their door would be an ICE officer. And that would prevent them from going out and being part of the communities and getting those resources that they need.
Absolutely. So WYTV7, WYTV7.org, which is a platform where what your story comes from, they have a financial literacy program where they're reaching out to youth and their parents, to help them learn more about financial literacy, and also to reach back and, and help our elders or older adults who they may not can't seek financial independence, but they can work on their financial wealth. So in that, I hear that you bought a home. So tell us how owning a home, changed your life.
Yes, so I did buy a house when I was 24, and I bought this house being undocumented. And that's one of the biggest things that I think I want to bring up, is that you don't have to be documented to buy a house. You just have to have a Social Security, which I got through the backup program, and show that you have good income coming in. And buying that house was the best decision of my life, because the equity that I'm building can be used for future home renovations. It could be used for my future kids' school, and maybe even opening a small business. Who knows? But it's there for me to use when I need. And the best part is that I don't have to worry about some landlord raising my rent each year. That's not an issue that I have to worry about. So yes, buying a home really changed my life.
So I know, like in our community, and I'm speaking to our viewers on the Afro-American side. Education plays a huge factor. If I look back, I can remember my parents, like you said, have a savings account or go to school, get your education. But we didn't have classes. And I was born in the 60s. So we didn't really have classes, teaching financial literacy, that really zoomed in. Of course, you had math, but really zoomed in on financial literacy. So are there programs, or do you do workshops that, focus mostly on empowering financial independence, or, for the future for your youth?
Yes, so we do offer workshops at our center. They're completely free for the residents of the Inland Empire. But I also suggest the audience to go online and do some of the research themselves. For example, visiting WYTV7's website. There's plenty of videos about financial literacy there. Also going to investor.gov and the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau website. So those are great starting points to learn some of the basic information. And then, of course, personal finance books are a great resource. Personal finance courses, which are offered now through nonprofits in the area. So just getting out there and seeing what's there, I think will be helpful.
So this company that you work for, is it CAPS BC?
Mhm.
Do they focus in the community that help with financial literacy, or they help in the communities in other ways?
It's more of general. So for CAPS BC, which is the community action of San Bernardino County, we help people achieve self-reliance and economic stability by getting housing help, utility assistance, as well as home weatherization. So we do more of a wraparound services.
So Zulemya, do you have someone in your family who has been deported and that it affected their family, financially? And I know you said, especially if it was the father, but do you have a situation in your own personal family that has happened to you?
I actually have a friend whose dad was deported. She was in middle school when it happened. And what happened was that they had a raid in the factory that he was working at, and he got caught up on it. So he was deported, and within 1 week he was already in Mexico. And this disrupted her family completely, because again, the dad was the breadwinner. He would bring in the money to pay for the apartment that they were living in, to ensure that there was food on the table, to ensure that the bills were paid. So when he was deported, it all landed at the mom's shoulder, and they did become homeless for a while. But then they were able to get a hold of some family, and the family was able to take them in. However, it really disrupted my friend's schooling. She was taken out of middle school at the middle of the year, and that really affected her because she was taken away from all her friends that she had at the school, and she struggled a lot. Her grades went down. She struggled mentally to comprehend what happened. But luckily, she was able to graduate high school. She got through, and she was able to go and finish college. And she's now working as a social worker in a local nonprofit. So she was able to overcome what happened to her. However, the process to get to where she was immensely painful, and it set her and her family back years.
Absolutely. So breaking a cycle of poverty, especially in the Latino community, what do you want the audience to learn today, or the takeaways from this conversation? What would you like to leave with our audience?
I want to say to never stop learning. Get your hands on as much information as you can, because again, you're your biggest advocate. No one else is going to come in and change your life. You have to take charge of your future. You have to take charge of your future path. Buying a home is only the first step to building wealth. Investing is the other. There's a lot of free resources. You just have to go and find.
Absolutely. So Zulemya, we want to thank you for being a part of What's Your Story. We want to thank you for sharing your story and letting it become our story on What's Your Story. And if you're out there and you're struggling with financial literacy or any type of educational barrier, please go to our website. That's wytv7.org, where there is a financial literacy program. And through your support, WYTV7 is able to go into the schools and into the community, because that's what it's about, community broadcasting, and help the community in establishing financial wealth and to build financial wealth. So please donate and go to our website, wytv7.org. I'm Sharita Williams. I want to thank Zulemya Reyes for being our guest, and we are focusing on education, empowerment, and encouraging, because we too want to break the cycle of poverty all over the world. So we like to thank you and keep pounding, because we will break the cycle of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Sharita.